How's everybody today?
Good.
Good, doing all right?
Beautiful day out.
Oh man, tell me about it. Was able to get out of work for lunch, and then that was it. I've been in the office the entire day just looking outside like, damn, it's nice outside. That's it. How's everybody today?
Good.
Oh, good. I said damn.
Okay, you're all set.
Okay. Therefore, call this meeting to order. The Common Council of Buzzard, City of Buzzard, New York, Planning and Community Development. I will note that all members of the committee are present, except for Councilor McFarland. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 8th, 2021 Finance and Community Development Committee meeting. Take a motion by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Canales, Councilor Canales. Any changes, updates, or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're going to move some things around a little bit, mostly because we do have somebody presenting an item for us this evening. As many of you approved the work that Saratoga Associates was doing at the beach to begin the implementation of the 2016 waterfront feasibility study. I've asked that Dan from Saratoga Associates come and present the progress that's being made and to discuss some of the work, the thinking about funding, thinking about the implementation and the planned approach to implementing that study. And so we talked today about it, and I just asked that they come and present to this committee, which will feed into another item, the 5.5 resolution for grant writing services. Hey, Dan.
How you folks doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
We're doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us. And as I noted before you jumped on, I just wanted you to provide a similar update, maybe not as in depth, but certainly the highlight of the work that you've been doing out there.
Yeah.
The connections that you've been making with other agencies, including potential funding agencies and regulatory agencies.
Sure.
Just give us a highlight on what you've progressed so far.
Well, Mayor, thank you, and thank you for everyone for being here tonight and having me. I did provide an update to the Community Economic Development and the Mayor this morning with respect to the implementation plan. The implementation plan, as you folks are likely aware, is for us to provide basically a roadmap forward with respect to a phased implementation of things that were recommended in the City Beach 2016 feasibility study. To date, we have been making a lot of inroads with respect to potential funding sources and with regulatory agencies and with technical support through Lake Champlain, through New York State, and through some other private entities and philanthropic opportunities. What we've been focusing on right now is funding sources, because it's always great to have these plans, but how do you get it funded? And, you know, there's some pretty unique opportunities that are out there right now for this project. We had a price tag on this project for everything, you know, soup to nuts was going to be upwards of $50 million. That includes a lot of things. But, you know, you look at this phased and you look at it based on budgetary constraints and what funding's available. Those things being said, we have reached out to a number of agencies. We've reached out to the Nature Conservancy. We've reached out to Lake Champlain Basin Program and Champlain Area Trails. There is to a person been a lot of interest in the restoration and rehabilitation of City Beach and making it even a more viable, sustainable economic revitalization catalyst than, you know, I even anticipated. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up for discussion with the board tonight, and it's specific to where things stand in the process of the procurement of funding. procurement of funding. We're having discussions with the Nature Conservancy, the Lake Champlain Basin Program, and Champlain Area Trails. I have discussions with all of those folks next week. I think the thing that is probably of the greatest imminent opportunity is the Regional Economic Development Council and the CFAs that were released on Monday. I spoke with REDC and the representative, Bill Ferguson, earlier this week, and he identified basically at least half a dozen programs that our project would be eligible for. Now, our project includes a lot of different items specific to rehabilitation. There's wetlands restoration, there's dunes restoration, there's trails installation, there's environmental remediation, there is installation potential, construction, installation of piers. There's a number of things, and that's just kind of the first step in beach restoration and infrastructure improvements. He identified at least half a dozen projects and programs, including Empire State Development, New York State Parks, the Department of State. They have both daughter projects where the LWRP can actually be used as the launching point for future funding, and even BOAs. So potentially the old, junkyard that's out in the wetland could be mitigated in some fashion based on that funding. So DEC is involved, OPRHP is involved. There's even the potential on the parks and DEC side for some climate change funding, because it's right along the wetland and everyone's very concerned about that based on what's been happening in the Great Lakes. So he identified a number of projects that we should pursue. And we identified, I spoke knowing that the city was looking at potentially having procured the services of a grant writer. And it was informed to me that Bartlett LaJudas was potentially on board, up for approval to do the grant writing for the CFAs. It's CFA season. There's about a 2.5 month window right now to get all these things completed. The actual timing is excellent. For anyone that isn't, that allows about 10 weeks for the grant writers to get informed, go through the process. And if I could just say, I work with Bartlett LaJudas quite a bit, and they are, of the billions of dollars that have been allocated through the CFA program, I have no doubt they have been directly responsible for their clients being allocated hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 10 years. They are highly productive and proficient at this grant process. I would, I would make a recommendation from my perspective. It would be great to get them on board so we could start strategizing about these grants, because they look at it from a programmatic level and they look to prioritize things. It's not just a one and done for grants. There's a whole strategy. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if there's anything I missed or you would like me to fill in any details on, but I'd be glad to.
Can you just remind, I know we talked about it earlier, but can you remind me at what point will some type of report come out of your
certainly.
The next steps and funding?
Certainly. I got a little sidetracked. We are going to have a report to the council for review within definitely by early July. What we looked at with respect, and that includes some of the renderings showing a programmatic view. We're also looking at having costs, ground truth cost estimates for short-term costs and longer-term projections, at least in a draft format, to the council for discussion within a month. So I would say probably by the third week of June.
I do have a question. So the recommendation here to go with Bartlett and LaJudas, Have we ever dealt with them before here in the city, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And what is their record regarding grant writing, like 50% success rate, 60% success rate?
No, do you have we did attach a packet to this item, even though I wanted these folks to come and report on the work that they're doing at the beach. I didn't necessarily expect that this item was going to be discussed right now, but we can certainly go into this item if you want. But with the packet of tonight's materials, we did include a write-up of their expertise, the amount of money that they've been awarded for different projects and different communities that they've worked with as well. That's under 5.5.
I didn't have access, I'm sorry, I didn't have access to my email until about 3
Oh,
o'clock
yeah,
this
I'm sorry,
afternoon,
that's right.
so. I did read it, but I didn't put anything to memory. But can, in the meantime, can that question be answered, or?
We did have that discussion with Barton Judas and a few of the other firms with which we conducted secondary interviews after the initial proposal received. All three of the final firms had success rates somewhere between 60 and 70%.
So they're in line with that, 60 to 70% range?
Yes.
Is that high? It seems high.
That is very well. It's what they do professionally. They maintain a relationship with all the funding agencies. They make it their business to be aware of all the different programs that are available, to keep track of the various projects that all their clients have on the shelf waiting to be funded. So if it's what you do for a considerable portion of your business, I think a 60 to 70% success rate that you can offer your clients is something that really for the larger firms is the rule rather than an exception from what I've seen over the past month.
And they do everything from beginning, right, till execution, right?
They do everything.
And they'll be, I mean, if we decide to approve this, be looking at all kinds of things. I know we had spoken about this yesterday.
Yes.
So all departments, all grants, yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Thank you.
Anything else for Dan, Saratoga Associates, the work, specifically the work that you're doing? I don't want it. I'm not trying to discount the effort on the grant. I did want to have these folks come and talk about the work that they are doing at the beach as well, because we're paying for it. So. All right, thanks, Dan. I appreciate your time. Thanks for making the time this evening.
Everyone have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Okay, item 2.1, Mayor's Office Discussion Community Engagement Coordinator. Last year, the Community Engagement Coordinator position was funded. It's been unfilled this year. There have been a number of back and forth with civil service regarding qualifications. We have done a couple of interviews internally, and we'll be putting forth. Sorry, Beth's having a moment back there. We'll be putting forth a recommendation for hire. We just are working at the hire date at this point, but then until we actually get a hire date, we'll start to execute on that. Okay, 3.1, draft resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works to submit an application for the 2021 Bridge New York Grant Program. Take a motion. Canales, second by Gibbs. Discussion. This item is a grant-funded program. We're specifically looking at this bridge here, a full deck replacement of this bridge. On this side, as you notice, there's some work being done on the sidewalks right now, but fundamentally the bridge needs to be full deck replaced down to the beams, for new asphalt, new concrete, new sidewalks. It's a 5% local match. So on a $5 million project, the city will be tasked with providing $250,000 of those funds to do that replacement. This is the authorization to submit the application for that grant program. Any further discussion?
If we don't get the grant, what happens?
Absolutely not. If we get the grant, then yeah, we're responsible for the 5% match, which can look in any way between the money that we're getting from the monies that were kind of tucked away and saved over the years.
Fair enough. And what, does that bridge have a name?
It does have a name.
Smith Weed or?
I was gonna say the Weed Street Bridge, but then I was like, maybe,
Close.
yeah,
It's
so.
the Smith Weed Mansion Bridge behind this little thing. Okay.
Apparently a former mayor tore it down in the middle of the night, but I don't remember. It was like an old wooden bridge at one point, tore it down in the middle of the night. The Plattsburgh folklore, sure people will be letting us know. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 4.1, draft resolution authorizing revising capital project H5110.73-2019 farmers market improvements. Motion. Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Canales. Discussion.
Was this the beams that we were looking, or? was that
This is all,
different?
this is all of the work that we've already approved monetarily, and it's just moving those monies back into a capital project fund.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 4.2, draft resolution authorizing budget transfer for legal fees, zoning board of appeals. Motion. Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Kelly. Discussion.
So help me out here. This is from, I see from December through January. Wasn't, this person was, I assume it's the same person I'm thinking of. Is hired for the crime project. Wasn't that finished by the zoning board of appeals in December?
And final vote for that came through the zoning board in the January meeting. So these are the final bills that came through from December to January for that person that the zoning board hired.
And in 1 month, they racked up $12,000 in legal bills?
So it's spread over 2.5 months.
It's 10,000 for January and 1,200 for February. So this has nothing to do with 2020, it's all 2021 legal fees. So nothing was expected this year, and these fees came in after we had paid everything for last year.
And how much is the total?
Well, we paid them 29,000 last year, so call it 41.
And do we have invoices, or like an itemized invoice on that?
Yeah.
Don't we have them?
I thought they were part of the attachment.
They're not in here.
I don't know if there's anything that had to be redacted, but I think Dean has seen them. I think I sent a copy to the mayor, but yeah, we did receive those. They were forwarded to us from Ron Mall.
I would like to see the itemized invoices before we vote on $12,000 for 1 month of legal fees. After 29,000. I don't know.
I agree. Well, a vote would only authorize it to go to next week's agenda. That's all it does. So we can, I mean, just like, we're not approving it tonight, it would go to the agenda next week. And that's when it goes final approval, so between now and then, we would like to see.
Yeah, there's a couple of mechanisms that we can employ here. We can pull this, make a motion to table this item, and we can provide information via poll of the legislature, or poll of the council. We'll throw that there. And after review of the poll, then people can vote digitally, I guess.
Yeah, all right.
To move it to the regular meeting. And then at the regular meeting, after review, or individually or in-person discussion, we can make a motion or move to all the questions.
Yeah, going forward, we may want to, limit, or at least have some say-so in the future for when there's expenditures for legal fees like that, a sizable bill could get ran up without really any approval from anyone. I'm not sure exactly what kind of mechanism we'd be looking for, but maybe something to at least have us review the fees ahead of time, or,
Well, that's what we're asking for basically, right? I mean, we're asking for the invoices, that's what you want
yeah, I know,
to
but there's, we're gonna be something in the future, you wanna be able to deal with this. Say somebody wants to build something and they end up with legal fees of, $80,000 or something, very prohibitive for any project. I just think we should have some oversight in that in the future.
No, I agree.
Just something to think about, but not everything to act on today. I know we had a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah, I remember our building was last year. All right, so I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One in the negative. Down. 5.3, approval, this is an approval of American Red Cross License Training Provider Agreement. Motion by Councilor Canales, second. Councilor Gibb, discussion. So what is this doing? Red Cross provides lifeguard training.
How many lifeguards are we looking to hire this year?
12,
12?
Did we skip 5.1?
Oh, I'm sorry, I withdrew that. I'm sorry. That's
Oh.
wrong.
Right.
I apologize.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Sorry, that was part of the, I do apologize for that. That was part of the whole Saratoga Associates conversation that was a little bit premature.
Does this cost us anything?
No, it's a zero cost of the city of Plattsburgh. And this is actually a renewal for the next 3 years.
Okay, are we talking about the licensing for the,
The American Red Cross license training provider agreement.
With this, are we to assume that the beach is going back to its former self in which there are ropes and cordoned off areas where people can swim?
Correct. As discussed previous, we have a beach operations plan, which includes a designated swim area, a designated buffer area, and then outside of that, a swim at your own risk area.
Last I recall, when we were going to discuss that with the health department, I believe they're the ones who set the rules.
Correct, and that has been, that plan, that beach operations plan was submitted to and approved to the health department.
And did I hear you say that there will be a swim at your own risk area?
Correct.
So that they will not be blowing whistles at people who
Correct.
swim anywhere they want in the lake?
Correct.
That's an improvement. It's not what I'd like to see ultimately, but it's an improvement. I really don't like the lifeguard, and I don't like the cordon off swim areas. They're very, very restrictive. So as long as there's an alternative, I feel okay with that.
I agree with 100%. Those areas where they allow you to swim with a lifeguard are tiny. Can't even go above your navel or your waist or something.
Yeah, it's a hard place to have fun because of that. So, yeah, I love the beach last year when it was simply closed because you could go there and swim anywhere you want. And it was fun. I think you went also, got to the farm.
I'm sorry, what did I do?
Went to the beach a few times last summer when it was officially closed.
Yes, I love the beach. Yeah. It's a great beach.
Well, yeah, I don't think anybody really disagrees, but I will say on the other side of that is people who have kids who, they want to just let them run in the water, not to say, look, I would keep my eye off of Miles running through the water, but then you have that kind of lifeguard protection and people watching, and so one thing that we wanted to do is to mimic the flexibility that the state park also had, and we kind of mapped that operational plan on what they were doing to get and had that approved through.
Well, as I said, the opportunity to swimming where you want is good, and I appreciate that. That's an improvement. But, yeah. I regret that we have to hire 12 people to work at the beach. It's expensive, and, you know, we didn't have that last year. No harm was done either. So, guess ultimately, I'd like to see it be left alone, and you can swim anywhere you want. You know, if you go up and down the beach, the other location, you can swim anywhere you want. So, you know, why do we make it so restricted at the city? To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I do understand the argument about, children, you know, giving them a safe place to play, or parents not having to watch them constantly. So that's an okay thing.
Councilor Thomas.
Yeah, just the safety for children, that, you know.
Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Carried. One in the opposition.
Kelly?
Yeah. 5.3, draft resolution approving amended and restated development agreement for the 13th Street lot mixed-use development portion of downtown area improvement projects. Motion. Councilor Canales, second by Councilor Gibbs, discussion.
Can we get kind of an overview on this? I mean, I read it, but.
You want to get an overview?
What's different from, what was amended, I guess, what I would.
So the original agreement was adopted or approved by the council a year and a half, 2 years ago. Since that time, a lot has happened, but there's been some a need for extended dates and further clarification of that agreement. So not much, frankly, but there has been some changes. And in addition, we have also completed the GEIS study. This recognizes that this is also rolled into that GEIS review, that environmental review. So it kind of encapsulates that as well.
It also incorporates all of the conditions that the city zoning and planning boards have placed upon their approvals regarding parking spaces and a few other aspects of the project.
As far as policy changes, it's very similar to that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5.4, draft resolution approving parking operating agreement for 13 lot mixed use development portion of downtown area improvement project. Motion by Councilor Gibbs, second. Councilor Canales, discussion.
So is this in line with 5.3 then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the
So
development
the
agreement.
parking in line with the zoning recommendations and so forth?
Right. Any further discussion?
That was the parking changes, that resulted from the zoning board.
Yeah, there was some zoning board, planning board, approved the respective permits and put some public parking conditions in as a condition of their approval. So this parking agreement reflects some of those numbers and then just adds other protections for the city and the client. So that's the formal park contract that we both look to see how it's going to be operated.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 5.5, award of grant writing and grant administrative services agreement. Motion by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Canales, discussion.
I am very excited about this. I think this is great. Yes, absolutely. And it's something that we need.
Absolutely. What types of grants are we gonna be, these guys gonna be looking for? It's not just for the beach.
No. This is, part of what we are already doing and already the grant portfolio that we have, maybe looking at administering that. I have those items. As mentioned, the CFA process is now opening up, so there's opportunities for tackling items in that process as well. Any grants that, like the Safer grant, for example, or either the Safer Grant or the Bridge Grant, those types of opportunities as well, they'd be looking at leveraging. And I think it's just a matter of working closely with them for having them understand what our goals are for a municipality, and then mapping on what they're familiar with and how to leverage what we're doing with what grants are out there.
One of the things I said to the mayor yesterday when we had our meeting is, I would love to see, us go after some kind of historical grant to revamp City Hall, things like that.
There's a lot of museum grants out, so I'm sure that they.
In the years prior, we hired some to do this too, the application, but I don't think that person's available.
It's cheaper to pay a contract than
Yeah.
this would be better, it would be financially much better for us.
It sounds like they're pretty successful, and they will bring in for the city, I'm sure, more than $66,580.
Easily.
That's right. 10 times that.
Easily.
It's proportionate, so it's a good investment.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 5.6 draft resolution awarded alcoholic beverage concession at City Beach. Motion. Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Canales. Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question. Is this a different, Lucy Enterprises of,
Nope, same Cabana Beach. Yeah. Look, they've been at our beach, invested in our beach for 9 years now. All right, they've just been, they've got a following, their own beach market, so continue that effort with them.
There always been alcohol sold at the beach.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Listen, I'm not with you.
Yes.
Well, I'm too busy taking care of my kids, that would be a bad look.
Thank you for the reading.
And I came back and go, lifeguard
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed?
That's probably the worst all I ever heard all night.
That carries. 5.7 draft resolution of award of food and non-alcoholic beverage concession at City Beach. Motion. Now, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion.
yeah, so this must be the other end of that.
Correct.
And last year, and by last year, I mean 2 years ago, that was the, Polish Corner.
Correct. I believe that's it.
And so what kind of food establishment will, Mr. and Mrs. Gosho be running?
More of a kind of a mixed bag, and give me 1 second, I'll read down the list of the plans. All right, coffee, tea, smoothies, fruit juices, hard ice cream, soups, mac and cheese, grilled cheese sandwiches, hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza, and grab bag of stuff.
No problem.
That's where I was oh, maybe, I mean, it's not on the limited list, so.
I can't help but notice that this is the same people that are on, resolution number 5.8.
Yes.
That's correct. Mr. and Mrs. Gottschall did on both the supplies and the food and alcohol beverage section.
Okay, so they'll be running the food operation and also be running it's right next door, if I remember correctly, the supplies operation and stuff like that.
Yep.
Not directly related to this, but Matt, are we gonna be having more events down there? I know, probably 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there was events, they had like Rock Eater and beach volleyball and all these things. This attracted a lot of people. Is something in line for that this year? I mean, I know we don't actually.
Sure, I know beach volleyball is always a popular activity down there. I know the beach bar guys assist us with organizing that, and since they're right next door, it's perfect for them. We do have I believe the water cross later in the summer, Mr. Mayor, which is the jet skis out on the lake. As far as other major events at the beach this year, I think Mayor's Cup is being held primarily at the beach facility this year. Beyond that, I don't believe anything else is scheduled.
That's how you guys.
There have been no other private events organized, but I'd certainly like to see the beach opening, you know, the beach typically opens that 21st of June officially. But there aren't any like major happenings out there right now, other than the ones that Mr. Miller just listed.
So, I know this is also not exactly part of the resolution, but you made me think of this. Years ago, we used to open the beach on Memorial Day weekend, and we stopped doing that because it had to do with the hiring of lifeguards. We waited until lifeguards graduated, or, you know, finished up school, and then we employed mostly high school students. But if we're opening up a section of swim at your own risk, would it be feasible for us to open the beach to students?
Well, I mean, the beach isn't necessarily closed,
Right.
right? Because you can still get on the beach, you can still walk on the beach, you just can't drive on the beach right now. You know, I'm not opposed to opening gates at any point. I was just out there driving around, and I tried to get in the beach this afternoon, I couldn't get on there because the gates are closed. There's just nobody out there right now we just don't have a presence out there, if you will. Certainly not opposed to it. You know, I don't think anybody's really opposed to it. The Cabana Bar folks definitely are not opposed to it. You know, it's an extra month of them being able to operate. Yeah, it would just depend on the other vendors when they could operate that, but that shouldn't prevent us from opening the beach if we wanted to open the beach earlier.
Sure, Public Works would be heavily involved in that as well, because they've always done the beach cleanup before it's open. I just thought I'd bring that up because I remember that was tradition in Hartford for years.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, Mr. Martineau, who was brought back on to manage parks specifically, is managing the cleanup of the beach. So we have a single kind of point of reference or single point of contact to manage beach cleanup, beach operation, the day-to-day needs of somebody out there cleaning things up and managing things, so that could be available.
As soon as we can open the beach, the better, as far as I'm concerned, but I'm not in on the logistics of that, but,
Well, let me work with Matt on what those logistics would look like if we wanted to open before the June date, typical date on June. So I don't think that'd be too much of a heavy lift, but let's work with the logistics of it before I put my foot in.
Okay, perfect.
5.7 is still on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5.8, draft resolution award beach supply concessions at City Beach. Motion. Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Gates. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. A few discussion items, I just realized I skipped 4.3 and 4.4. If you want to go back to those, please. The April monthly finance report was sent out.
Maybe Richard could give us an overview.
Perfect.
I did read them, but maybe for some of our counselors, what our finances look like. Do we have bills you have to pay that maybe, are making our revenue line look bigger than it is, or anything like that? I mean, you want to give us
Well, the revenue comparison for the general fund this year versus last is higher. You've got two items that are affecting that. One's the AIM funding, 15%, which appears to be refunded from last year's 20% AIM reduction. We received that in April. We don't normally get AIM funding until September and December. So I think we're going to be that 15% ahead. So that's skewing the income higher this year than last. And we received the sales tax in April, as opposed to the timing for it last year was delayed through to May. You see,
our parking lot fund is pretty, parking lot fund, did I read that correctly? Our parking lot fund this year is much higher than last year.
the revenue appears to be off the charts, but that's just because the SAD funding is collected with the property taxes. And, it's the principal revenue source there. So it just looks like things are through the roof, but, it's nothing other than timing.
Okay.
It'll balance out already.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We've got, the deficit that's budgeted in the parking fund this year, which is not encouraging, $225,000 deficit, and that's because of the debt service on the parking lot on Margaret Street. So that's going to be questionable about how we're going to finish the year. If we don't institute any parking revenue during the year, that certainly is going to impact that whole problem. The rec complex was underfunded, as we see from the results. We're doing a lot of budget adjustments to account for that now, to plan for things like the marina insurance that wasn't budgeted for, demolition of the building, the Anderson building that wasn't budgeted, had to be done this year, and a few other things like that. And that fund also has a deficit projection of $115,000, but I think we made up somewhat for that because we've been transferring costs that are going to be funded by the general fund through transfers on an interfund basis to the rec complex. Unfortunately, the rec complex is eating a lot more costs this year when it comes to the IT managed services and telephone, because of the reallocation of how those costs are charged. And that's based on where the Ethernet connections and where the usage is. Unfortunately, the rec complex has 3 Ethernet connections, one at the marina, one at the gym, and one at the crate. And so we have to determine if we're going to keep those, but they're actually principal cost centers, which hasn't been charged in the past. But now everybody else in the other departments is happy that they're not eating all those phone costs they used to for the rec complex. Unfortunately, it creates a problem in the rec complex that we have to deal with this year.
So the revenues for the rec complex are year-to-date $172,000. I heard you say that is insurance for the marina, or I'm sorry, that's expenditure. But where are these revenues coming from is my question. $172,000, how much of that was contributed from the general fund?
I'm not sure which number you're talking about.
It's in page 1 of your report that it lists all of the various funds.
Yep.
And what their expenditures and revenues are.
Yep.
The rec complex has revenue of $172,000.
Most of that would be coming from the general fund.
From the general fund.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But there are some revenues coming in from the marina that have already materialized.
the activities at the crate center, for example.
Yep.
Is that included?
That's included in there, yes.
172?
Yeah. If you look further back on the report,
Pardon?
if you look further back on the
Yeah, like on
the
page
next
4, I
pages,
looked on page 4.
right, it shows you the different revenue sources.
At the rec complex. Let's see, page 4.
So that'll give you a summary of the different revenue types that we're collecting. Should be some crate programs, some marina revenues.
Let's see, interfund revenues. That's, what we got this year. Year-to-date, actual interfund revenue, we got $116,000.
That's all coming from the general.
So last year, we had $286,000. So big difference there.
Yeah, we budgeted much lower in 2021. I think it was only supposed to be $200,000 for the year. However, we know that funding is going to leave the rec complex short by at least $115,000 for the deficit, and now it's even going to be funded less because of the reallocation of the IT managed services and phone costs. But we've been making transfers, and these budget adjustments you've all been approving to accommodate transferring more money from the general fund to the rec complex to make up for that.
So it appears though we have some employees in the rec complex now. Who are these people?
I think there's one in the admin section, and that would be Scott Dupre, who's managing the events and, he's actually helping with the marina issues, the beach issues, any issues.
All of the administrative work that remains for the rec complex.
He's doing it all by Yeah.
So Scott is the one employee in the rec complex.
He is the one full-time permanent employee of the rec complex.
Now, there's some other payroll that's budgeted there for some part-time work for setting up the marina, which will be Jonathan Duquette from Public Works. And I think there's some temporary budgeting in the beach for the lifeguards and so forth. It's quite a bit, 89.
I think it's interesting to compare last year to this year in the rec complex. The expenditures are much less than they were last year.
Yeah, in the first 4 months of last year, there were employees in the rec complex.
Right.
There's none there this year.
I do remember that.
How much of that, how much of those expenditures are going towards the work that we've been doing at the beach? And, you know, I know that some of that money has gone to hiring Saratoga Associates for their implementation plan.
Yeah, that's 20,000 that
Yeah.
we transferred, and 11,000 we transferred to drop the Anderson building. 12,500 to fund the marina insurance.
Yep.
Because it was underfunded.
Yep.
47,000, I think, for the projection for the entire year. The share for the rec complex for the IT managed service and phone costs. And I think now we have another piece going into that, which we're going to be looking at soon for the infrastructure.
Yep.
The hardware and
For the disaster recovery.
the disaster recovery piece. Yeah, that's another 111,500. The total for the allocated cost for the phones and the IT managed services was $226,000 for the year, of which we had to increase the rec complex budget by 47,000 to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are going to be upwards of probably $300,000 in transfers to the rec complex by the end of the year. Pretty much the same as what we were in 2020, the budgeted amount.
And in 2019, as I recall, that amount was broken 700,000.
658, if my memory serves. You're right. Yeah, it was a big number. The only thing we didn't get to do in 2020 was reduce interfund support with to test the new revenue schedules that we had put together and the new pricing we put together for the entire year for the programs. It was working for the first 3 months of 2020, but when the pandemic said shut it all down and fire everybody, that it just took that out of the mix to see if that was going to be successful or not. It appeared that it was going to be after the first 3 months of the year.
Yeah, we were on track to do well with that. That was Rochelle Armstrong's work. She did a tremendous amount of work to determine what would give us the appropriate amount of revenue, what was competitive, and so on. And it was so devastating.
Yeah.
It didn't follow through. You're right. I mean, we're not.
COVID won the day.
Well, it did, but I mean, it's still better than the stuff. What did you say? 650,000.
658, yeah,
That
in
we had pulled in
2019.
2019. So.
One final question on the rec complex, and that is culture and recreation. We spent $54,000, looks like this year. I'm looking right. Yeah, $54,000 versus $222,000. But what is included in culture and recreation?
Are you talking about the revenue or the expenses?
Let's see, culture and recreation.
It'd be great if we could put the report up on the screen.
So
I didn't bring it with me. I didn't print the whole thing because it's a lot of pages.
Well, I just like to know, what we're spending for $54,000 year to date is much larger than last year.
What portion of the report is it in?
It's under recreation, it's on page 4, it's under recreation complex, and it includes, it says culture and recreation, the number is 2120.
Yeah, that's a summary line item. Let's see if I have an old report. I probably don't. Usually that encompasses, the expenses that you have for the administration. And do you have the beach and the marina and all the different expenses broken out separately there?
Yes, it does. It has the rec complex admin, rec complex B, rec center, gym, and the reason I'm concerned about this is because we made a budget last year that was based on not spending a lot of money in the rec complex. So at what point do we become concerned that we haven't, as you were saying, allocated enough money in our budget to fund the rec complex. But basically, the rec complex it's an offshoot of the general fund, basically. And that's how I think of it. Money comes to the general fund, a lot of money.
Yeah, it has its own revenue sources, which were higher in the past. It's not like the library where the principal funding has always been from the general fund.
Oh, it's an amazing difference,
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
say, 2019 to now.
But I can tell you what that's made up of, the culture and recreation. I'll send you a detail for that tomorrow.
I would like that as well.
Sure. I'll send it to everybody.
Thank you, Rick, appreciate it.
Yeah, the summary report is, just to give you the overview, obviously the bar graph is 30,000 foot look. If you go to the back pages of that report, you see all the detail in the world that you want about everything: payroll, overtime, equipment purchases, contract services, employee benefits, and every line item for every department is listed for all the different types of expenses.
This same report,
Yep, all the way back in the back, there's about
okay,
6-7 pages. And if you like detail, that's,
okay, sure.
see what I mean?
Looking at contracted services.
Yeah, it just, you can see every line item from the rec complex that's in there for contract service. So,
Okay,
but I'll send you what that cultural recreation is all made up of.
okay, thank you.
Yep. Results look good, obviously, this year versus last year.
They sure do, sure.
Although last year we finished, with a $2 million surplus, adding to the surplus of 2.4 million we had the year before. So we're at like 4.8 million in surplus in the general fund, which is about 19% of the operating level.
What is the percentage that we really should?
The state recommendation is between 5 and 10. And when all of you sat around, well, not all of you, but when the council sat around and determined what's our target, 20% was what was targeted. And of course, the previous mayor was saying that he thought it'd be better to have 30% in the rainy day fund. So we're at about 20 right now.
Because we're self-funded for insurance, that was his theory.
Well, self-funded for insurance is always, it's not a big issue because of the stop loss that we carry. I mean, the self-insurance isn't like the door closes, like there's not going to be a $2 million claim that's going to shut down the city or take away all the surplus. It just doesn't happen that way. But in events that you can't control, like let's say you have a $3 million suit against the city for some kind of infraction or negligence that's claimed through the courts and it goes through a trial. That's a killer because we're not insured for that kind of stuff. So that's where the rainy day fund would really come in handy.
Right. You're right.
So,
All good news.
well, yeah, so far so good. But if you have any specific questions about the numbers, there's tons of numbers in there, and pour through them. The only overtime negative we have is in the fire department, and it continues to be that way. Like every 2 weeks, it's $13,000 or $14,000. But the other overtime accounts for this year are doing very well. But they're detailed in the back of that report as well.
So Mayor, if we have questions, is it okay if we reach out directly to Richard?
Yeah, just include me.
Include you on there?
And I'll include everybody on the response so you all see what.
That's great.
It's
Thank
all
you.
just going to be the facts of what we're doing.
Any further discussion? Okay, go back down to 5.9, discussion on the parking permit system. There's been some internal dialogue regarding parking permits downtown. Right now, we sell a $3 per day parking permit. To date, there's been about 160-ish of those daily parking permits sold. So $3 a day. You can do the math out. If you spend $3 a day on a daily permit, so a $90 a day permit, monthly permit. There's been some conversation of transitioning that, which was originally a pilot program for testing out permits to a more permanent structure for downtown permitting. I certainly have had a number of calls in my office regarding, hey, can we get something a little bit more permanent so that my employees aren't running outside every 2 hours to move their car. The notion, and it was just a discussion, is that we would look at a permanent monthly and yearly parking permit structure for $45 monthly permit, where folks can purchase, if you live downtown or you work downtown, you can purchase the $45 monthly permit for long-term in parking lot. If you want to purchase a yearly permit, it'd be like $500 or so for a year to park downtown, in the long-term parking. That certainly would save a significant amount of money, in terms of either the ticket, which is a $15 ticket, or paying a $45 fee per month, or a little bit more of a discount if you purchase a yearly permit. It would be limited to people who live in or downtown. Couldn't, you know, I couldn't, well, you could consider any work downtown, but it's not the parking space. But if you're just coming downtown to hang out, or you live uptown and you want to come downtown, or you're down here on a regular basis, you know, you have to adhere to the regular parking rules. So,
It would only be available, so I think the problem here is a lot of times with residential parking in New York State, with the state rules for that. I think we reached out to the state in 2019 was the first recommendation of the parking committee, but I don't think we've gotten anything there, but I don't think it economically, if you're not working or living downtown, it makes sense to buy it at those prices. What did you say the monthly price would be?
45. Versus you get a $15 ticket if you park and get a ticket downtown.
Yeah.
And listen, I get parking tickets. If I park on the street, I get parking tickets. Right? I pay them, but $15 pop. You know, between Tracy and I, we probably spent $45 already, if not more.
A couple of years ago, Mayor, we had a study done by a group that specialized in parking and.
The Carl Walker study?
Yes, Carl, and I wonder what they recommended for paid permit parking. Did they?
Well, so the 14-point parking study plan, the first point was to enact a managed parking system. So you could say that the parking permits are in that. They didn't come with a strict recommendation, whether it was like, you know, paid parking or permit system, some sort of hybrid. They said set up some sort of parking authority almost to oversee that and change. But I think the most important part with the parking scheme is that it can be flexible and change in the future. And the only issue I see with a parking permit scheme is that the one thing we want to avoid is we don't want employees buying parking permits and then parking right on the street in front of their business. Because you want to have those spots available for people who want to patronize the business.
So how do you control that?
The recommendation that we've been kicking around was purchase the permit, but be required to park in the parking.
You know,
And not on the surface street. Because you're right, you don't, you know, look, if I had a permit and I'm still parking out in front of my business or Iris's, it still creates the problem of the lack of parking accessible to people who want the ability to park and shop and then leave. Same thing with business. You want that churn, that consistent churn. So you don't want people to park downtown in a parking on the street and still consume that parking space.
so a person with a permit on the dashboard, say, who parks on the street for more than 2 hours gets a ticket.
Correct. So if they park in a parking lot for long-term parking, they're free to park there
As long
all
as.
day, every day, as long as you want. You know, we don't want you to store your car there for 5 months, but, you know.
It's a good, sounds like a good.
So the one thing we need to do to make that feasible though is start charging or have time limits in the parking lots. So right now in our parking lots on Court Street, on City Hall Place here with next to the Salt Pepper, and on those might be the only two. There are 2-hour parking limits on those. But in the Arnie Pavone parking lot and the Durkee Street lot right now in the Broad Street parking lot, there are no conditions on parking. So even without a permit, you can go there and park forever. So if you start charging for permits to park in the lots, then no one will buy a permit if you can park in the lot for free anyway. So we have to sort of manage the parking lot.
Well, it has to be dealt with.
Well, we want people to be parking in the free lots anyway, right? Like, that's the whole point of having a free lot. We want people to park there. The problem that we hear often is it's too far away from the place that they want to do business, especially if it's a short-term half day, maybe that they want to do business there. But if they're residents or working downtown, they can certainly park in a free area, not have to run to their car every 2 hours to move it.
Yeah, I mean, and parking in the Court Street lot and stuff like that, if you got a permit, you should be allowed to park there. The other place, when we were looking at it a couple of years ago, that made sense to allow people to park with a permit was Oak Street. Made a lot of sense because it covers, the western side of downtown, but from the south end to the northern end of downtown, so it's never too far away. And it doesn't get too much, it's not too congested throughout the day because, it's not a big business thoroughfare. But there's a lot of ideas you can think around to sort of entice people where to park. But I do think permits is definitely something we should go forward because it's not fair to people to have to come to the finance office and buy a booklet of $3 a day passes. Because like you said, that's $60 to $90 a month.
So we can continue exploring it. We had a good thread going regarding the permit fee or permit structure. We know it's fairly popular. People are purchasing the $2 a permit now, but if you do the math out, that's $90, which seems fairly excessive. And I'd rather just park it during the street, walk over every day kind of thing, but.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have to pay the park on the weekends because they don't have to be enforced.
Right. Green Street, this is 5.10, Green Street, discussion of Green Street traffic flow. Thank you for everybody who did, the council, I think everybody at some point came down to take a tour of the farmer's market building, last week. We all had, also, if you were, at the county op or the city operations, committee meeting last Monday, this past Monday, the market director manager came and spoke about the success of the market. And one thing that stood out, which I saw too, was the traffic flow on Green Street, both the foot traffic combined with car traffic, back and forth car traffic. The current proposal recommendation is to make Green Street one way. Temporarily, this isn't a permanent issue. This is only for the Saturday between 9 and 2 on Saturday, but make Green Street a one-way in and then direct the outward traffic through Harborside parking lot on the in lane on Green Street, and then on the out lane on Green Street have that be pedestrian traffic back and forth. So you can have bicyclists, walkers, people on foot on that side of the street, and then put up barriers and other protective devices to make sure that coming into Green Street, people can only drive in one way, but then they're directed out. People can also drive in from the Dock Street side. They're not nobody's preventing people from driving around to go into the farmers market from Dock Street. That's also available. There's a way to get through to navigate as well. So that's the current proposal, and if it's amicable to the council, then that's kind of the way we're recommending right now. And we'll, make sure that the farmers market folks are kind of can agree with that as well.
I like that idea because it seems that most of the problem was people egressing from the farmers market on Green Street.
That was a bit of a problem, but there was a little bit of a traffic backup, people coming in while they were waiting for people leaving, people coming in, and then the foot traffic that was kind of in there as well. So we just want to separate the people not in cars versus the people that are in cars.
It'd be much safer solution that one way. Because you're right, there's people trying to get in there, and there's people trying to get in and out of cars. There really wasn't any room left.
Right.
Is there a longer term plan to improve that street sufficiently?
We will talk about that. We're going to talk about that, yes. Well, there's a long-term plan. Okay, so we'll look at, is that something we can do this weekend?
I would want to check with Dean, see if any form of traffic order or form of council approval to
the address, does sound like we would use our quarter, which comes from Mullane as the city planner. So it could be a fairly fast process, but not that it's.
They're gonna make it the whole, right? Yeah, it seems like you can try something.
I mean, in the meantime, you could have, I guess I don't want to recommend it, but you could have a law enforcement presence and just direct traffic temporarily until we get the traffic order.
Yeah, the only concern about that is it's overtime on the weekends. We wanted to try to avoid that. So, not to say we can't, and for public safety measures, we could certainly put a uniformed officer out there to direct traffic for a few hours if needed.
I think if we could put some signage up as well, because we recommend people use the egress on part of that could also get some of the natural.
You know, it's a good problem to have, lots of people.
Good. The final order is a motion to go into executive session for purpose of discussing the potential of purchase of real property, of which, if it were publicly disclosed, it may substantially affect the value thereof. Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, listen, we'll just exit out of here and then meet in the old council chambers for executive session. Okay?
Good. We're gonna leave Beth all alone.
Just one.
I'm gonna ask,
You don't?
I was just gonna ask you to.
Okay, all right.
But you go on.
unless you have to like outside head of lots of, I don't know.
Oh, we're
Okay, folks, welcome back. No decision has been made during the time in executive session. I'll now take a motion to exit executive session. Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor McFarland. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any new business to come before this committee?
Yeah, Mayor, I spoke with you this week about the city council.
Yep.
Budget plan. And, we typically pass that around June first. So the time is moving to do it, and I'd like to see it done again this year. Now, I have copies for the council of our last 5-year plan. You don't mind passing?
I do not want. Have it as John that.
I think the first page of that document I said, the first page was done in May of last year. So about a year ago, this was done, and at that time, we were in the middle of COVID-19, and we were very concerned that we were going to have very big budget shortfalls. So if you look at the column in this spreadsheet labeled 2021 and go all the way down to the bottom where it says surplus deficit, you can see that we were $1 million in the hole, or at least we thought we were going to be at the end of the year, due to a decrease in sales tax revenue and also state aid to municipalities. So that didn't turn out to be the case, and that was good. But this tool has been very, very effective in helping us plan budgets for going on, well, for 4 years now. And I'd like to continue with it if the council is in agreement. It certainly helps us plan, and we've been very fortunate in those 4 years that we hit our budget targets just about every year. Came really, really close. And the second page there is the revision to the budget that was done in November of last year, when it became obvious that we weren't going to lose quite so much money. So you might want to take a look at that too. So this year's 5-year plan, as I see it, would be an exercise in again saying, well, how is COVID going to affect city finances, the revenues over the next year or two? And I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as we projected last year. We learned from experience that people still spend money during the pandemic. So the sales tax was okay, and the state funding was okay. So,
Well, Richard was saying we had $2 million surplus, but our fund balance is now up to 4.6 million.
yes, that's a good segue into what I wanted to say last, and that is that it would be essential to have Richard help us in the 2020 column to say what were the actuals at the end. So I'd like to see us go forward with this. I don't necessarily want to do it. I think Councilor Gibbs is their higher pro tem.
You just told me. Told me.
I just threw you under the bus.
You threw me, like, in the bus behind the wheel, Michael.
But I would certainly help you with it. I know how to do it. I don't really think it's my place to do it.
Well, at our next meeting, our next mayor's person meeting, why don't we talk about,
Yeah,
how to go forward with that, and, maybe we could come up with a plan like who would do it, how we would do it, that kind of thing, and, maybe have something ready by the next, finance committee meeting in June.
In June,
Yeah.
that would be a good plan.
Yep, I think so too.
Another interesting thing to bring up in that is the, President Biden's, recovery package, I think was what, 2.4 million to the city?
2.17.
0.17. 1.4.
Should be in receipt of some of that first chunk of it within.
Not yet, and they just came out with, they only just came out with the guidelines for communities 50,000 and more. We're still waiting on all the other, communities, including ours, how we're supposed to spend that money. I don't think that, the initial, guidelines will likely hold true, which we've been doing some formulating around here on, departmental loss of revenue, infrastructure, things like that. It's just a matter of the recommendation from all of our associations that have said, if you get this money, don't spend it, because you don't have the guidelines yet. Once you get the guidelines, then, spend it according to the guidelines. It makes sense, we're not gonna spend money which we don't know how to spend it, and then we penalize for doing so.
Well, back around with,
Yes,
but the idea would be that we would hand this budget plan to you, and you would use it as a guideline to construct next 2022 budget. So therefore, I think you should be involved in this discussion.
Well, he is the head of the finance committee.
Yes, exactly, and, he has to use this tool to make a budget, so. And this, this is in the charter that the council does a budget plan every year. This is the form it has taken, a 5-year, 5 to 10 year actually budget plan. But there's any number of ways you can do it. This seems to be a pretty good way.
don't work with Counselor Gibbs, and Gibbs, Mr. Cassidy.
Okay, you want to call it?
Whatever you want, whatever you want.
What do you always?
We know Elizabeth.
Good. But yeah, absolutely, just, when we meet over the next several weeks, we'll put together, formulate some plans for the budget cycle, and then, my ideal situation is that whatever's presented, everybody's on the same page, council, department head, it looks great, and we all can say, yes, we did it all together, and it's not a, very smooth, I like smooth transition, I like smooth, okay?
Absolutely.
Cool, thank you, I appreciate it, Michael. Any further new business to come before the committee?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? Councilor Gibbs, all in favor?
Aye.
Very out here, thanks folks, appreciate it. All right, see you.
Okay, so